In the Fuzzy Memories podcast, we celebrate the good, the rad, and the fugly of the 80s and 90s.
We're three latchkey kids who made it out alive.
And in each episode, we break down all the culture that popped, 1 year at a time.
Whether it's the birth of legends...
I'm Lyme disease free today, and I have Whitney Houston and MTV to thank. Or audacious moves.
Imagine also the poor Golden Gate Bridge. You turn 75 and people have a party on you.
Yep. I don't want that.
Or even confusing PSAs.
And the stop, drop, and roll. I mean, I assumed
Yes.
as an adult I would catch on fire weekly.
All the time!
We've got a take that will make you laugh.
We've also got thoughts on all sorts of random phenomena and the most unmitigated of gall.
Why sharks can't be trusted, people can't be trusted, and rivers can't be trusted. It's collusion.
Of the highest degree.
Uh-huh.
You were counseling me to start my remarks with, first of all, bitch.
Everyone in that room would have snapped to attention.
It's going to be basically coffee lids, shark revenge, and then maybe like Matt Getz. God, we need to do something about him.
Join us every other Wednesday to celebrate the hits, the misses, and the misfits of the weirdest decades.
If I could tell my 14-year-old self from 1990 that I would be eating in a Cheesecake Factory in
Beverly Hills.
I'd be like, we did it. We did it, Joe.
We did it.
Listen and subscribe to Fuzzy Memories on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platform.
Hello, and welcome to Broads and Books, the podcast with one unique theme, 4 handpicked book recommendations, and 2 broads. I'm Amy.
And I'm Erin, and this is episode number 7, Misery Loves Company.
These are the books that leave you feeling down, and perhaps even depressed. There's no happy endings here, no perfect solutions, none of that.
No. All of our picks this week are books to read if you're depressed and want to stay that way, frankly.
And sometimes you do.
Sometimes you do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to live in it.
Just need to wallow.
Yes. And I have to say that it was a little easier to come up with these picks than
I thought this was going to be difficult. Yeah.
I did too. But it also made me want to do all my sad things. So it made me think, Amy, do you have anything in particular when you're sad or feeling down that you do to like stay in it? Like, I'm not ready to give this up yet.
Like, I just want to get down in it and stay there. Right. Yes, I will watch some David Fincher movies, like Seven, Fight Club. That stuff is depressing.
Yeah.
And that'll keep you there.
Yeah. Seven in particular.
Oh, yeah.
Terrifying.
Right?
Yes. Okay.
Kind of along that same vein, Paul Thomas Anderson movies like Magnolia, Boogie Nights. Those are not happy films. Very entertaining, but they'll keep you down in the dumps.
Okay.
Also, I like to read some dystopian fiction. Or the news, which increasingly feels like dystopian fiction.
Yeah, that can be a bummer.
Those 2 things will keep me down in the dumps. They'll let me wallow a little bit.
Oh, all right. I like that.
What about you?
Well, as we've learned in other things, I do like to listen to songs on repeat. So often like a really, kind of depressing, sad song. Like I have like a general playlist and I'll play it in the car. And when you're like feeling good, you're like, nah, skip that song right now. But when I'm sad, I'm like, oh yeah, that's my jam.
the one.
Yeah, I'm just going to listen to it for 6 hours.
When you listen to it, do you cry? Do you have like reactions like that or what?
Yeah, I don't think of that. There's usually outward crying at that point. But sometimes I also like to take a bath, which is, I do this no matter what emotions are. Like I enjoy baths as a person. So not just, I don't mean in just getting a clean way. I mean in like a relaxing way. Okay. But sometimes when I'm really sad and then you swallow and then the water's warm and you can just kind of be like, oh my gosh, everything is terrible. And then you can kind of get away with extra crying because it's like there's so much steam.
There's so much water already.
What's happening?
Yeah.
Is my eye leaking or am I crying? Anybody's guess. Yeah. So I do that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can read like emotional books sometimes during that time. But I will say when I'm sad, I can't get too emotional with like movies or that, or they'll send me over the edge and I can't come back.
Me too. I can't go deliberately sad. I have to go like dark. I have to go, grungy. I have to go all of that.
Yeah. Just like too sad is just, it's going to be too much.
Yeah. If it's like a romantic drama or something, hell no. Can't do it.
No. So would you say that there's something you do then when you're ready to be done with that? Like to get yourself out?
Definitely.
Crawl out of that sad hole?
Crawl out of it for sure. Yeah, I think when I've decided like I'm good and done with feeling that way, I could do a few things. If it's nice out, I'll go take a walk outside. Sometimes that helps just, I work at home for my company, and sometimes just staying in my house for too long at a time will only exacerbate any sort of, down that I'm feeling. I'll watch some good sitcoms, New Girl, Parks and Rec. Always good to watch some reruns of those. Cats on Instagram, as I've established previously.
Instagram.
I mean, and cats on Instagram, also cats in person. If I put podcast.
Yeah. Slip up.
If I put podcat on my lap, she'll make me feel better, whether she wants to or not. Sometimes she's trying to get away. I'm like, no, let me love you. Yeah.
Forced lovies can be a good way to get out of sadness.
Like, I have love to give.
Yeah. And you're going to take it. Yeah, that's also something else, I think. But anyway.
What about you, Erin?
A lot of those are similar for me, which is probably why, we get along so well. But the other one that I would say besides the sitcoms that hit and, fresh air would be, I like to organize things. So when I'm really feeling good, I'm going to tackle something.
Get in it.
This corner of the closet, you are done. You are done. Out of here.
Does that involve your label maker?
Yes.
Getting into it with your label maker?
I got my label maker. I probably made a list beforehand of how my strategy, like we're going to start here. I'm going to have these kind of piles. This is where this stuff is going. I like to have a clear plan. And
God, that's gratifying.
Get it. Yeah, it is great. That is good for getting out of I'm in one too if I'm just like, meh, I don't want to do that.
Oh, boy.
Label maker, meh. No.
Has your family come to know these signs?
Yeah, I would say Mike probably does real well. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
if he sees you with the label maker, he's like, okay,
things are good.
This is positive.
Yeah. Things are good. But he's also like, oh gosh, do we really have to label that? We don't know that that's what's in that shoebox is shoes. Really?
I will say this from experience. I have walked into your garage in the past, and it's boxes upon boxes of labeled items, including individual bins for shoes.
Yes.
Which just knocked my socks off, I got to say.
Yeah. Now we've since moved from that place. So my shoes are now in a closet, but they're still labeled. And there's still things in the garage that are labeled.
Well, sure. Yeah. That was just one of the first times I think I was at your house. I was like, this is revealing about Erin's character. Yeah.
That's crazy. You can't hide. You just have to let it be out there.
And why would you hide it, really?
Yeah. I don't even feel bad.
No.
And, in a testament to my brother Reed, he's the one that gave me the label maker. And before he gave it to me, he labeled it with a label that says Erin's label maker.
Oh my God, he knows you.
I know. It might be in the top 10 of my favorite Christmas gifts ever. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Pretty great.
Kudos to you, Reed.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Perfect gift.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, great. Well, so, our picks this week are more for the previous version of depression.
Yes.
When you don't want to do anything productive, when you don't want to get out of that mood, when you just want to wallow in it and feel terrible.
Awful.
Yes. So for our fiction picks this week, I'll start us off.
Yeah.
And I've got The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath.
Oh.
Published 1963. I mean, come on. There's a reason this book and her poetry is classic, especially for this kind of mood.
It really is.
Yeah. And a quick story for listeners, if you don't know about Sylvia Plath, she was this incredible, fiery poet and writer. She was depraved, really. What I was trying to say.
Don't go look that up.
Okay, yeah, no. That was a mashup of words.
Which I like.
Yes. I was trying to say plagued. By depression. It got smushed. I was like, I don't have enough time for all the words, so I'm just going to smush them together.
I like it together, though. Depraved.
That's depraved.
Great.
Yeah.
As a shorthand, it's just she's depraved. So,
yep.
Plagued
so
by
Sylvia
depression.
Plath,
okay.
Depraved. And at the age of 30, shortly after The Bell Jar came out, she put her head in the oven and killed herself. And I remember as a kid when I learned about that, thinking, oh my God, so she put her head in the oven and burned it off, and that's how she died? I didn't understand gas and poisoning and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, after she died, her husband, the poet Ted Hughes, reworked the order of the poems in her book Ariel, and then had it published. And it was kind of interesting, kind of scandalous, because some of the poems dealt with a tyrannical husband and previous father. So there was a lot of thought about like, oh, he's trying to like change how her reception is. He's trying to change her really and how she's received. Anyway, so that's a little bit of backstory about Sylvia Plath. But here's where it starts, is this book. It's sort of a autobiographical novel. It's this really beautiful, haunting, deeply depressing book about a young woman who seems to have it all, but she's slowly going mad, to the mental institute type mad. Esther is the main character, and she's in college. She's won this contest to intern at a teen magazine. This is in the 1950s. So they sort of dorm these like dozen or so girls up into like a hotel or into a place for young women to be supervised and chaperoned. And the magazine, as many still are today, is all about catching that man.
Right.
Yes. So, and that's also the focus of these young girls, because they're in college at a time in which, their parents are sending them basically to find that man, find that husband, and settle down. But Esther wants to do other things. She has ambitions. She has needs. She has desires. She doesn't want to just find a man and have children and settle down. And this, sort of troubling desire that doesn't fit with what other people want is sort of combining with this sort of festering depression that she has. She starts detaching from the world. She feels like she's under a layer of glass, hence the bell jar idea. And it worsens until she's attempting suicide, and then she's put into a mental institute for a breakdown, and she's given electroshock therapy. So if you're feeling depressed, this one will keep you there.
Yeah.
It's pretty rough. But at the same time, Plath is this incredible writer, and she can sometimes inject this humor into the book that's just so weird and kind of inappropriate in a lot of ways and just wonderful. Here's a taste of her tone. She says at one point she's talking to, one of many guys that are sort of trying to get in with these ladies. She says, I told him I believed in hell, and that certain people, like me, had to live in hell before they died to make up for missing out on it after death, since they didn't believe in life after death, and what each person believed happened to him when he died. The response from the guy is basically like, what? Like, huh?
What?
Yeah.
What did you say? Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
So she's got a great voice in the novel. So it's actually a very riveting read. It's kind of an easier read than you would anticipate maybe from hearing about what the book is about. Fun fact, this book was rejected by U.S. publishers at first because it was deemed too juvenile, which is hilarious to me. Wow. I think they saw that it dealt with young women and they were like, no, that's not,
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
So even more depressing that great writing isn't recognized.
Yeah.
And so lots of reasons to stay depressed.
Yeah, that is.
By reading the bell jar.
There was a lot of layers right there.
So many layers.
A lot of comments about society in that one. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes. Depraved.
Depraved. We're going to try and get that in Webster's Dictionary.
We're making it a thing.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's me.
All right.
What do you got?
I liked it. All right. My pick is, don't be misled by the title, but it's called I Married You for Happiness by Lily Tuck.
Ooh, so it does sort of a, slap you in the face, like.
Well, and it's the story of Nina and Philip and their 43-year marriage. So, and I'm not giving anything away, but the book opens with this line: "His hand is growing cold, still she holds it." And we find out right away that Nina is in a room holding her dead husband's hand. Ooh. So the whole book takes place over a single night. And it's just this very real, honest look down memory lane. You are just seeing everything from Nina's point of view, all her thoughts, her memories of basically the whole run of their relationship. So you're seeing little like snippets of them at the beginning, and then, you'll come back to present, and then you'll go back into a memory and then back. But the whole thing, there's no separate chapters. It's all kind of stream of consciousness, stream of thought. So it really, really makes you feel like you're kind of just floating through her mind, and it's very true to the way a mind works, where you're kind of all over the place sometimes, especially maybe in times of crisis, or you can kind of get on a loop. And she's in this really dark moment and she's remembering all these things. And some of them are great memories, and some of them aren't, which is what is magical about this book, is that you walk away feeling, not that this was some story of a perfect marriage and she's, just all it is that she's broken up about losing this person. And certainly she is about losing him, but it's more just about this real honest look at a 43-year relationship and what that really means and what those two people really went through, things that she never told him, things that, she wishes she told him, things that she did tell him and how that went. I mean, it's just so many things, and it's only 190 pages, but
wow.
you just feel like you've spent all this time with her. And they're not, the memories aren't themselves necessarily so sad. It's just written so vividly that you feel like you're right there with her. So that loss just feels so much more immense.
Yeah.
You realizing that she's sitting there with this person that she's talking about just sort of haunts you as you go through each page. So I didn't necessarily choose it for this theme because the relationship is bad. I think the relationship's just very real, and traveling through all the emotions and the personal memories, there's just a lot of ups and downs. And I think that's the mood fits with just having that kind of melancholy time where maybe you're reflective or you're feeling like I don't need to be reminded of other people's version of happiness. I need to just live with whatever feeling I'm feeling right now and let that be okay. And I just really think it's much more about how you feel the loss and as though you're with her. I mean, it's kind of empathy on overload. So I think that's why empathy, at least for me, a lot of times can translate into that feeling of sadness, because it feels overwhelming sometimes to really take on other people's feelings. Yeah. So I think it's really good for people who want a real look at relationship. That's not all bad or not all good, not, that shiny, sparkly, but just real and honest. It's got some really interesting thoughts about afterlife as well. So that's another angle that's very interesting. I would say it's not good for people if you struggle with unusual structure or moving quickly between memories and present day. This might throw you off, so it might not be your thing. And also if death is a trigger for you, it might be something that you want to avoid. But if those things are not issues for you, I think it's worth it. And even if they are, I don't think it's so jarring that you couldn't give it a try. But it's really great. It was a really good read. I read it quickly, even though it goes, through the memories. I mean, that's the kind of the way you ingest it, because it's so you don't want to stop. It's hard to find a place to stop because there's no chapters, so you just kind of keep going. And it kind of gives you that I'm just here.
Yeah. So you said that even though the structure was pretty stream of consciousness back and forth and everything, it was still a quick read. You were still following it well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep. I just, some people don't.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Don't like the different. I kind of like. I'm a sucker for different structure, but I know that can be a throw off for some people. So go into it eyes wide open if just so you have that warning. But yeah, I don't think it's difficult by any means. I mean, you can definitely follow where she's going with it, but even the memories jump around in time, so it's not very linear in any way. So
can you imagine? You were talking about the empathy. Reading this when you're feeling in a very depressed state and having that empathy. Can you imagine what it's like to write this and sit with this book for maybe however long it took her, like a couple years, something like that?
No.
I wonder how she unwound at the end of the day.
Yeah, because you really have to be in a certain state to really look at this in and out. And the fact that it takes place over one day, as a writer, you can't say, oh, I got done with that chapter, we can move on.
Right. Just constant.
It just keeps coming. So I can't ever let it go.
That reminds me, kind of different, but hearing Stephen King speak, where he said that people will come to him all the time and be like, dude, you must be super dark. You can never let it go, right? And he's like, actually, no. I write for a few hours and I go and have dinner, broccoli, whatever. I do a normal life. It seems like it would take a special person to be able to have those clear lines so clearly.
Yes. I think
between
you would
whatever
have to.
terror or the horror of death or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the same side of saying that, as much as I think you would have to draw those lines for Stephen King, I feel like there's more of a natural one, because a lot of times you're dealing with really dark murders and, psychos and things like that, where you would say, okay, that's not my real life. But, when you're talking about a subject like marriage, if you have a long-term relationship, you're looking at that going, eating that broccoli at dinner, being like, about this.
Yep. Looking at that partner or thinking about that partner.
I just wrote a scene about you.
I made you die.
I was holding your hand. It was terrible. And I'm not going to dedicate it to you either.
It reminds me of when you wake up and you have dreams where doesn't Mike do something in the dream and then you're pissed at him for...
Yes. This just happened a few weeks ago and he was so annoyed. He's like, how am I getting in trouble for something I did in my dream?
Because it felt real.
Yeah, and I think it was because when we started the conversation, his response was off and he's like, how am I supposed to respond to a fake Mike? It's not even real.
Fake Mike's a dick.
Yeah, I can't help it.
Oh, boy.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Public apology.
Was that to Mike? A public apology?
Yeah,
or to our listeners? For everyone?
Both.
Okay. I think Mike's going to get a lot of those as we keep, you know.
Probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was good, though, that you mentioned. Can't wait till I'm holding your hand and you're in a coffin. Oh, my God. That was me, Mike. That was not your wife. That was all on me.
So dark.
Yep.
Speaking of Stephen King. This feels like a time for a transition.
Sure does. Well, hey, I was going to say, though, that that was a smart move of talking about, like, certain things that if you're reading this, you know, might be real big triggers for you. Feel the same way about, you know, the bell jar. If you're going through some real shit right now, it might not be the best thing to read. Yeah. That's a good thing to say.
And we should say that just about this episode in general. I mean, we're saying things about when we feel down, but that's not to say that these are things that are easily fixed or that people that are actually dealing with mental health issues, that it's as simple as getting your label maker out. Nope. Certainly not. No. Those are very different things. And so while some of the picks that we did pick deal with that on the same level, we know that that's a whole different can of worms.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
We're in no way saying that this takes care of that.
No. In fact, this may make it worse.
Yes. Yeah. And no.
So maybe turn it off now.
Yeah, that feels like what we're saying, doesn't
it?
We're bad at that. Why do we keep talking people out of listening to
No,
our...
I mean, you threaten people, and then now we're saying...
I stand by that. I have no qualms about that. If you need your legs broke, you did something.
You know where to go.
Yep.
Well,
what'd you pick for the second one, Amy?
Well,
our nonfiction pick /
good transition.
Yeah,
Erin.
thanks.
Nice.
Did you like that?
Change.
Been working on it.
Nice. Yep. For other genre of books, I chose Citizen, an American Lyric by Claudia Rankine, published in 2014.
Okay.
This is a book of sort of long form poetry. It's also a little bit of nonfiction. It's a lot of everything really mashed up into this crazy just ride of a book. This is a story of a Black woman living in the world. The everyday things, like the small slips of language, the ways other bodies move around you, remarks, judgments, things that start adding up over time. You know, this cumulative effect of just, God, this is so annoying. This is so frustrating. This really hurts. Also the big things like watching the news of young Black boys shot and their mothers, you know, crying for them, watching the world freak out to the ways that Serena and Venus Williams dress and look and act. One of the incredible things that she does in this is write in the second person. So it's you do this, you do this. You're the one experiencing this, which is so brilliant because then it puts you in the position, even if you are not a Black person, even if you are not a person of color, it helps you get into that headspace a lot more. It's really remarkable then, the effect that you feel.
Yeah, that is an interesting use of that. You don't see that,
So this you that the writer is writing to, you're talking about the shitty things people have said and done and the kinds of like, did that just happen moments? Oblivious coworkers, trying too hard friends and dates. She talks about one friend that's just trying so hard and she calls her friend a nappy-headed hoe. And, you know, the narrator here is just like, oh, come on. Like, really? No, that's not how we base our friendship. And also the pressure to ignore some of these small things that start adding up over time. In fact, she says, yes, and this is how you are a citizen. Come on, let it go, move on. It explores what it means to be Black in today's world. And this was written before the overt organized racists started coming back out and making themselves known. So it's even more poignant today, even more effing depressing when it comes down to it, which is why I picked it. You see how, systemic racism is and has been, but also the wear and tear it takes on people. The narrator here, she's just tired. The you that you're reading, you are just tired of this crap. And you're just worn out from everything coming her way. And in fact, she says, the world is wrong. You can't put the past behind you. It's buried in you. It's turned your flesh into its own cupboard.
Oh, wow. That's a great line.
Right? She's a phenomenal writer.
Wow.
Like you can tell it's written in such a way that it feels like you're reading almost a normal book, but it's poetry. It is lyric poetry that is just gorgeous and beautiful and heart aching. The reading experience, besides just getting this sense of depression about the world, is that it puts you in that position of dealing with all that stuff. Plus, besides the use of you, there's visual art, there's quotes from artists and critics, there's slogans, there's scripts for films. So it's all sorts of things put into this book.
Oh, cool.
And just makes it a really incredible reading experience. But yeah, one you're not going to enjoy totally when you think about it. You're going to, feel pretty crappy about the state of the world and about humanity.
Yeah.
But, that could be said about a lot of our books that we pick.
Yeah.
If it comes down to it.
That's true. Yeah. That is very true.
Yeah.
So was there one section you really, really liked or one format or?
There was one, I mentioned that she talks about Serena and Venus Williams. There's a few pages in there where she talks about, I think Serena had won one of her many, 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 competitions. And she shows a picture of a white tennis player from, I'm not sure which country, but from Europe, who had put stuffing into her underwear and into her bra to sort of emulate the curves that Serena has, and started walking around the tennis court making fun of her. She shows a picture of this in the book, so you know exactly what is being talked about. And she's like, in that section, she's like, you see this, and you start thinking about what it means, kind of thing. It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's awful.
Yeah. The cover of the book also, and I don't have it in front of me, but it has a hood. So it's sort of meant to simulate, Trayvon Martin. This was being written around the Ferguson demonstrations against police. So there's a lot of visuals like that as well that are probably quite triggering for a lot of people. But she really dives into why that image is the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That sounds great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Sounds like a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so my nonfiction pick is a book called So You've Been Publicly Shamed by John Ronson. So I picked this book because, one, John Ronson he's written other books, including a book called The Psychopath Test, which is also great. He's a frequent contributor to This American Life. And this book was published in 2015, and it's not necessarily, across the board, a sad, depressing tale as much as it is just a sad, depressing commentary on society. He writes with a lot of humor, and the book reads really quickly. It's great for that, but it is just it's an interesting commentary about where we are, particularly in the social media age. So what happened is that 4 years ago, he wrote this book, and he traveled around the world for 3 years prior to publishing it. And what he specifically sought out were people who were being publicly shamed as part of some scandal or transgression on their part. So, and he often met with them and interviewed them while their public shaming was happening. So there could be a variety of things. Like there was a young girl and a friend of hers who took like a selfie outside of a historic memorial, and it came across as very not respectful. And it went viral on social media. And, so the backlash of that was that she lost her job, and she had to basically move because she was getting death threats. She was getting, it snowballed into this whole big thing, because essentially the whole point of the book is that since we've created this age where we can truly stay anonymous and created, quote unquote keyboard heroes that can say, oh, that's wrong, and I'm going to go after it without ever having to turn the lens back on themselves, we've created a world where we live in public shaming again. So back in the tar and feather, public executions, those types of things, it's likened to that, except that what happens is these people's entire lives are just desecrated. to the point where there's almost no coming back for them to anything that was ever like it used to be. So it kind of starts from, he starts at one end of the spectrum and kind of moves his way across. And he starts with people who, whatever their transgression or scandal was, that they didn't really have any response to it or just kind of ended up letting it bring them down. And he kind of moves slowly to people who have started to say, wait a minute, like, yes, I made a mistake, but is there someone here who hasn't and has tried to take a step forward and say, this is how we overcome that. So it's interesting how he kind of did that progression. And to be clear, he did not pick people who, quote unquote, you could probably get behind a public shaming. I mean, we're not talking about, a mass person who committed a mass shooting or murder, or kidnapping, anything like that. That's a true crime that, deserves to be answered for. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about in the court of public opinion. This is something that they decided was absolutely somebody needed to answer for it. So it's really interesting take on that. And it's so interesting to think about it in today's day and age, because even though this was written 4 years ago, it just feels like nobody's learned anything. Absolutely. I mean, it just continues to happen. And we've hearkened back to this place where we're so sure that we're so right and we know all the answers that we feel confident telling someone else that they don't or that they're not okay. So one of the parts that I loved in the book was towards the end. And it's a quote from one of the people that he's interviewing. And he said, he was talking about how detrimental it is to an individual to be put through this, when their whole life is put out there and they have no choice but to basically crawl under a rock. The way we construct consciousness is to tell the story of ourselves to ourselves, the story of who we believe we are. I feel that a really public shaming or humiliation is a conflict between the person trying to write his own narrative and society trying to write a different narrative for the person. You have to find a way to disrespect the other narrative. If you believe it, it will crush you. Wow. And it's such a great kind of quote for the whole book, because just how it all, ties together. And as another interesting note on this book, I believe in the first episode, my kind of other cultural pick was the podcast Criminal.
Yes.
And they just did an episode a few weeks ago called The Homewrecker.
I listened to that one.
Yes. And
I subscribed as soon as you recommended it.
Of course
just
you
so
did,
you know.
because you're my ride or die.
Because as we've talked about, now that we are introducing books to each other, we're adding them to our reading list. We're subscribing to podcasts. But yes, that episode was incredible.
Right?
It completely felt like this.
Ties in.
Yeah.
So what happened in this episode is that I'm going to back up, kind of tell the end of the story first. There was a gal who took a selfie in front of Auschwitz, a concentration camp, and titled it, I believe, Concentration Camp Selfie with a smiley face.
It was completely stupid.
Yes. Terrible thing to do. It went viral and she was getting just tons of backlash. And she tried to defend herself by saying
made it worse.
Yeah, her and her father had studied World War II together, which is then people were like, what is happening? So anyway, this got put where this took place in a town, the local news did a story on it. And a realtor, not related to this gal, not related to anyone in the story, wrote a comment that's defended this person, that defended and said, hey, people do stupid things. It is what it is. It's okay. We need to let this go.
Right.
Like, it's a mistake. Let's move on. I'm sure she didn't mean to degrade, which is true of a lot of these things. That wasn't their intention.
Not at all. Maybe, she was trying to help. Maybe.
Right. Although misguided,
yes.
Maybe a little bit ignorant, but to say that all of these things were done out of maliciousness is not true.
Exactly.
And so she defends her. So fast forward a few years, and this realtor finds out that there's a post about her on a site called She's a Homewrecker that is saying that she took a client and cheated with this client's husband in a house and is saying you should never use her. No, and she's like, I don't even know who this client is. No. And as a testament to her husband, who didn't believe it for a second, they kind of pair up together to figure this out, because this absolutely ruined this realtor's business. She lost all of her clients. When you Google her, it's one of the first things that come up because other sites posted it. So when it all gets revealed at the end of it, it was a person that was mad at that teenager for posting that, saw that this realtor was the one who defended the teenager and thought, well, she must be a neo-Nazi if she defended her.
Right.
And just took her down without any regard to the fact that you're doing the exact same thing. And so what was great about that episode is that it really showed a lot of how deep rooted this problem is. I mean, legally, you basically have no ramifications for search engines and it being indexed and being the first thing that comes up. It was bananas.
Yeah. The ability of shame to now just be spread so much further than it might have been than when we were just being held in stocks in the main square.
Yes. Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, to think, and John Ronson even comments about that author's note that he was maybe going to title the book Tarred and Feathered because he's like, I mean, that's really what we're talking about, right? It is. I mean, this is really where we've gotten to. Yeah. So I think it's great. I think it's written with a lot of humor. It's very entertaining. It's really thought-provoking about our responsibility to each other, about what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to use technology responsibly? But I did feel depressed. He's not offering a lot of hard and fast solutions.
No.
It's just a real commentary on where we are and what you really feel when you walk away is like, this is a huge problem that I don't know how we make it right.
No.
So that's fun. Read the book. You're going to have such a great feeling.
I agree. I read this one as well, like a year or so ago. And I liked the fact that there were some very high profile, cases of this shaming that he brought in to both illustrate, but then also talk to these people, like the woman that made the stupid joke about Africa. And then by the time her plane landed in Africa, she'd been booted and like millions of people were just tearing her to shreds on Twitter. It's such a interesting thing to see those stories, but then actually to talk to the people as well and find out the impact on their lives.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that.
It was great. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's great for anyone that has ever felt like they've made a mistake and so that means it's good for everyone, just to be clear.
Every person.
Everybody's made a mistake.
Even podcasts made a mistake.
And really, I'd go one step further and say, if you think of your worst mistake ever and you posted that as a Facebook status, can you imagine what you'd get? And that's what we're dealing with.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
we've gotten so good at looking at the appearance of something and being sure that we know it better than somebody else.
Right. That
we've completely forgotten that, oh, you know what? I probably don't always say everything perfectly. So, maybe I shouldn't, to use a really old phrase, throw rocks at glass houses.
Interesting. How old are you?
11. 91.
That sounds more accurate. Yep.
What's the other one? Like, there's one about a stick in your eye, isn't there?
Yeah. Man, we're
I'll
getting
remove
into
this sliver when you take that stick out of your eye.
Oh, good Lord.
That's not it.
No, I'm thinking more of like my grandma's advice is like take the stick out of your ass, which is way different. Way different. Grandma Jody.
I don't know what it is. That's going to drive me nuts. All right. Well, anyway, it's not quite that.
No, not quite that. But that's okay.
You get the idea.
Yeah. I mean, we've been inventing words. Now we're inventing phrases.
Yeah. If you got a sliver, you certainly shouldn't be pointing out a stick in someone's eye or ass. So I think that's what everyone needs to know.
Right.
And I really think that's what he was talking about in this book. So brought it home, nailed it.
Well done, Erin. Well done.
I feel good about the work I just did. Not at all dreading this episode.
God. No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay, so transition.
Yes,
Amy.
transition. Let's get back to being sad.
Great.
And I've got a good one for you. It's a musician.
Hit me with your best shot.
His name, it's not Pat Benatar. His name is Elliott Smith.
Oh.
Yeah. So let's preface this by saying that Elliott Smith killed himself in 2003 at the age of 34 by stabbing himself. So there's no happy ending to this story. He was a deeply troubled man. And his music shows that it is not happy. It's dark, it's pained, it's desperate, it's bleak, but it's also funny. It's also gorgeous. It is just, it's incredible. And here's where you may know Elliott Smith. His music was all over the movie Good Will Hunting. He appeared at the 1998 Oscars singing Miss Misery, the song that goes over the end credits of Good Will Hunting. And he looked completely miserable while doing it in his like white suit and just like, oh dear God, what am I doing here kind of thing. In all, Elliott created 6 albums. They are all just masterworks, in my opinion. Every damn one. I found Elliott through Good Will Hunting. I watched that movie when I was in college, and I just fell in love with Elliott Smith, and became kind of obsessed. He has this haunting voice, and, he plays guitar, he plays multiple instruments, and they're all working together with that voice to just create some real damn depressing music that's just gorgeous and beautiful. He did have drug problems stemming from deep depression. It was said that he had endured sexual abuse at his stepfather's hand. So, like I said, very deeply troubled. It was also kind of inspiring in a way, though, to see him use music to deal with all of that. Unfortunately, by doing music, he then gained more access to drugs. He was able to sort of self-medicate and create or make some of his existing problems worse. But for a time, I imagine, having that outlet, that creative outlet is enormous. One thing we talked about at the beginning, how we get out of feeling rough, feeling sad. Sometimes writing helps me do that. Sometimes it's either writing creative stuff, it's writing in a journal. Sometimes it's doing another form of creating, painting, coloring, whatever, just something to kind of make your brain work a little bit differently. Helps a little bit. I was going to ask you, because there's something fascinating about sad music like this, right? When you're feeling sad and you listen to it, it's almost like this echo chamber that keeps coming back to you, like,
oh, that's a great description. Yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes if you hear it in the right place, it can be kind of cathartic too and healing, right? What do you think that is? That like sometimes it just makes it worse, sometimes it helps you. Do you think it's where you're coming from?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's the type of music. I mean, I think as an avid reader, I'm often drawn to the lyrical part of music, and so in fact. It's so much so that I have a hard time listening to music when I'm doing other things because I catch myself concentrating on what they're trying to say. So I think a lot of times because I'm a reader, I'm always looking for, okay, what are they trying to say here? And then I'm relating it to my own life. So when you have that feeling and then you find a song that connects with it, it just feels like, oh gosh, I was meant to hear this right now. Yeah. And I think, but then it can do the same, which is kind of what we said about why I avoid some really emotional things when I'm feeling, a little bit on the edge myself, is because I don't want to be reminded of more,
right?
It's kind of like misery loves company. I want you to reflect what I'm feeling at this moment, but I can't take on anymore. Like empathy overload. Yes. Don't give me any more problems, but if you come sit in mine, that'd be great.
So it's company to a limit.
Yeah.
Like we want.
Company on my terms.
Maybe that's what this whole episode really comes down to is, picking the things that help you feel miserable if you want to, help you get out of it if you don't. Probably not the latter, but, misery on your terms.
Yeah, misery on your terms. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And strangely enough, which must say something about that question, is that I also picked a music pick for other. Yeah. And I think partially because I was kind of clicking through TV shows I watched and movies, and I'm like, man, none of these fit because that's not what I do in that time. So it didn't really work for me. But although this is a movie, and I will say it does fit, but I picked A Star Is Born soundtrack.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. The recent one, Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga. Yeah. The movie itself is awesome. Gosh. I mean, if you want to go and be delighted and then just
decimated.
Dashed. Yeah, just dreams and hopes on the floor. You should definitely go see it.
For sure.
And honestly, go see it either
wonderful.
way. Yeah,
really
that was a terrible description, but it's fantastic.
But it's true.
Oh, it's so good.
You're up and you're down.
And you don't get back
and you
up.
End down.
Yeah, you end down. It's definitely on a down. But the soundtrack is amazing. The music in it is great. Even if you're familiar with it from other versions or because you've heard it on the radio, I would really say get the soundtrack, and here's why. Because if you get the movie version of the soundtrack, they put snippets of dialogue in certain songs, which is amazing and also so haunting and terrifying because you hear the voice. I don't want to give away the ending, but you hear things and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm right back there. And you just, it's rough. It's so rough. And particularly the song, I'll Never Love Again, which is at the end. Oh man, so much. Just so much.
Which the title alone tells you what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one that I enjoy when I'm in that mood because I often like to sing along and I can stand in the shower forever and sing, and particularly if everyone's gone, that's great because then I can really get into it.
For sure. Because let's be honest, neither of us are Lady Gaga. We don't have those pipes. But in the shower, hell yeah, we are.
In the shower, I'm Lady Gaga for sure.
I'm singing that part of Shallow. I'm doing all the voices.
Oh, I do both parts. I'm doing Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga.
I think I'm probably better at Bradley Cooper's
which is my range.
Part. Yeah.
That's range right there. Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga in one. Also do it in my car, which is why I drive.
Yeah.
I try to drive in not areas that are very populated.
I like when I'm on the freeway and I'm just rocking it out to, let's say, an 80s hit. Like, Flock of Seagulls, something or other.
No reason.
Nailing it. And then I see someone looking at me. I'm like, you're just seeing greatness right now. That's what you're seeing.
You're just jealous that you're not in here getting some of this.
Here in Iran, so far away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that, I think it's great for that. I think it's great. You could probably do it both ways. You could probably use it both ways. I particularly use it when I'm kind of down, and because that movie just really reminds me of that feeling. And I think anybody that's had a relationship where there's struggles, which is every relationship, you can relate to so many parts of that movie. It was so well done.
It was. You're right. There's so many parts of the movie, especially where like, God, you made a poor decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you want to be so mad. And it kind of goes with the book. You've been publicly ashamed because, you want on the face to be so upset and to say, gosh, that was a terrible idea. But on the flip side, you're like, you know what? Man, everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody makes mistakes.
It's okay. Come back. Sing that song again. Play the piano some more. Something.
Get on stage. Your magic together.
Something. Oh, man.
Did you see the Oscars one?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man. Talk about, I don't want to add more fuel to the fire because I don't think either of them were very happy about the rumors, but I'm probably definitely not Bradley Cooper's girlfriend.
Probably not.
But.
They're good actors. That's what you can say. They channel.
The chemistry is undeniable.
Which made the movie even better.
Which is why the movie was amazing.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, and I read in an interview that Bradley Cooper actually championed for Lady Gaga to be in this movie. That there was some hesitation, and he was like, "No, she's the one. Like, this is it." Because he had met her. Yeah, and to be honest, I can't picture anyone else playing it, and I can't. From the music, you could not hear anybody else's voice. It's so great. Mm-hmm. Even if you haven't seen the movie, the soundtrack would blow you away, and then you would want to see the movie.
Yeah,
it's like the chicken or the egg. Mm-hmm. Movie, soundtrack, movie, doesn't matter. It's going to happen. Both.
And by the way, if you've been at a Starbucks in any time in the last 3 months, you've heard this song, Shallow. So just do yourself a favor, go out, see why it's playing every 15 minutes, and watch the movie.
That reminds me that after I saw the movie, I heard it. Actually, we'd taken the kids to a pumpkin patch for Halloween.
Oh, okay.
And like they had a stereo that they were, pumping music in, and that song was on. And I was like, wait a minute. I was so confused because I don't normally listen to just mainstream radio. And so I was like, what? Who? Did you see the movie? I was so confused. And like, no, this is a popular song. I was like, what? No, it's from this movie. You don't understand.
Without context, yes, it's a good song, but it makes it's so much better in the context of the movie.
Yes.
Just
so much better. Yeah, chills. I felt like I was having this crazy out of body experience. I was like, no, you don't get it. Did you see the movie? You're trivializing this while we're watching people pick pumpkins. It's so jarring.
So you were the mom freaking out over their music choice.
Yeah. Well, it was an older lady, so I really couldn't say that I was momming her, but we were having kind of a weird moment, and then I moved on. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a good interaction.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that was about the point that Mason clotheslined someone on the jump pad. So I was like, I gotta go. That's fine.
He just did you a favor.
Yeah,
he's
like, oh, Mom's getting awkward.
Well, let's end this. I got your back, Mom.
I'm just gonna save you real quick. Drag you out.
And he's age.
Yeah,
5 tomorrow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why do I think your children are younger than? I'm trying to make me less old. Is the problem?
Yeah.
Like when a couple episodes back, I told you your son Evan was like 9. And you're like, nope, 11 going on 12. Right.
Right. It's fine.
I did.
I didn't feel bad about it.
I didn't want to believe it.
No,
That's it.
I know. It just goes too fast.
It goes too fast. And I'm not even, around them all the time.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a little more information about me than
Sure
everyone
was.
needed.
Yep.
Okay. We're getting really good at these transitions, I feel like.
Oh, God. We are excellent at them.
So good. Man. Speaking of.
As we bring... That was...
Speaking of,
That
are we doing
natural.
next?
Super natural. Well, we've gone through all our picks, though.
We have.
Yeah. So, okay, we helped you stay in whatever mood you want this week. And if that mood was deep depression, we are keeping you there.
Absolutely.
And that is the end of our episode, Misery Loves Company. You can look forward to another great episode dropping next Wednesday and every Wednesday on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, you can head to our website, broadsandbooks.com, to check out all the recommendations we made in this episode, as well as one bonus pick. That's right. Every episode, either Amy or I picks one extra pick that is only revealed on our website.
And God, are they high quality.
So good.
I mean...
The ending that just happened, it's
Yeah.
like 100 times better than that.
So
Yep.
much better than that real awkward transition that we did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, surprise, there's also some bonus material on our website too. And if you haven't listened to this, if you haven't made your way to the website and found our bonus material, it's a delight.
It is.
I mean, seriously, you're gonna like it.
Yeah, you really will. And you can also check out our Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Give us feedback. Let us know items you might want to hear about in future episodes. If you have a comment, we'll take it.
We will,
Absolutely.
as long as they're positive.
Right. If they're negative, let's remember the public shaming book. All right. Let's just keep that in
Remember the
mind.
tactics we discussed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
If you are the creative type and you have a great idea for a future theme or episode, let us know that too. You can find links to all of our social media accounts and our email at broadsandbooks.com.
Also, we need a favor.
We do. That's true.
For this great entertainment that we're providing you, we ask nothing.
We really don't. We just ask for your ears.
Yeah. And now we need your fingers to do a little tippity typing. We need a review.
We need some tippity typing.
We need some tip-top typers to give us some reviews. Wherever you listen to podcasts, go. You click that 5-star, because I know that's what it is.
Well, yeah.
Obviously. And then go ahead and write out what you like about it.
It's easy.
1, 2, 3.
Right.
Done.
Tippity typing.
Tippity typing.
We are excited to hear from you, especially when you're tippity typing.
Yes.
And excited to be back every week. Until next time, that is it for us.
Happy reading.
I'm up again. Same night, another dream. Before trying this recording thing, I didn't remember much of anything of these dreams. I didn't remember much from any of the women. And one night of doing this, and it's broken things open. The dreams they're in me, and they're coming out of me, and...
Talk to me. I am not broken. I am the most whole, most real.
Cause their despair. I wait for the word. Witch.
Look at the mad woman in her cage. She was a woman with holes inside her. That was the heaviest factor, the final evidence, the heart of the issue.
Somehow, you understand this. You hear me. Wherever you are, whatever this is, you... This isn't a dream journal anymore. It's not. It's just fact. Because now this is some sort of record. What are these dreams? Maybe there's a better question. Who are these women? Weird Woman is a Broads and Books production. All 9 episodes are available January 10th. Listen and subscribe to Weird Woman on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platform. That's WYRD Woman.
wherever you listen to podcasts.